Day 5. So let's have a little bit of a summary of where we've got to so far. So we started talking about that really learning needs to be explained to some way to us as an adult. We really need to look at the way that we want to go about change. Change has to have a motivation behind it and a reason behind it, and therefore we must look at what the change is going to give us, and understand that that's worth it. And then when we realize that it's worth it, then we need to become better learners, and the first step of that is to enjoy the learning process, something that really wasn't encouraged at school. Certainly not when I was at school, a long time ago. But the whole point of learning is to enjoy, to engage in that time. And certainly we need to avoid those emotional things that happen when we don't grasp something immediately. We should be able to look at that and gain pleasure of the fact that maybe we haven't grasped it, because sometimes, you know, the harder it appears to us to get something, the more valued it is when we get it. So we've talked about focus, and focus in the act itself is also aligned to what it is we're working on and why we're working on it, and how to stay focused in on that. And how well focused we can get is on our ability to stay aware and become aware. How we can do that is through intent, is through feedback, is being incredibly aware of what it is that we're going to be feeding back on, and how we stay intent on gaining that feedback, and then how we look at that feedback in the light of what we're trying to do. So let's say that one of the things that we were trying to do was get better centre strike. So we were actually going to try and make the results of wherever our ball went, distance wise and to some degree direction wise, more similar if we're committing the same amount of power by hitting it out the same point in the club. Then there'd be a lot of things that we would do that would have nothing to do with power of strike or direction of strike, that we need to avoid while we're chasing down that one thing. So we've understood that awareness is crucial. And yesterday we started talking about the golf swing as just the golf club itself. So the shaft, the head and the face. And that anatomically wise, we certainly need to know what the body needs to do, but through that outcome, and not the body giving it the outcome. But there's definitely a link between the two. So we have to know how to move our body to deliver that club the way that we want. But there's one more really important thing. And for those of you that prior to this have missed the reasons why we slice, there's a lot in there that will completely amaze you. But I'm going to pick on one really specific aspect at the moment. And that is, we've been told to hit the back of the ball. And this is a complete misconception and fallacy. Now let's just go fallacy. It's not true. So the challenge is that by being given this instruction, and this instruction making sense to us, our bodies commit all sorts of different tasks to make that happen. So again, if we look at this curve that we have on the ball here, and the ball is here, then what we're saying is that at that point there, that club face is actually not pointing at the target. This means that we actually really want to catch that ball about one dimple from the back of the ball, so one dimple inside. Now, the fallacy again, the metaphoric fantasy, is that we can actually try and hit the full inside quarter of that ball, so at 45 degrees to that angle, and we would probably set up the body to move better. So what I'm saying is that although it's not true, the idea that we actually want to hit the inside quarter of the ball means that by the time we get to impact, we're more likely to have that leaning shaft. That then is going to mean that the ball is going to first hit the club with the club face probably 1 degree open to the target line, and then as it compresses into the club, as you've seen in those fancy pictures, it then comes off a little later, probably as much as sometimes 3/4 of an inch, of which case the club face would have squared up by that. So when it leaves the club face, that's when we want the club face to be square. But it's not so much the detail within that, it's the fact that we need to perceive that we have to come in on an arc and then come back inside on an arc, because that is anatomically how we're made to perform. Now, if we stay in this field, and the reason why I stated right at the beginning is that you already have all of the skills to become a great golfer, it's that we've been throwing spears for quite a few years now, and the spear throwing action has been passed on through the DNA. So if we think about the javelin throw, we can see how we get into this position. The left side clears for a right-sided golfer, the hand is still behind the elbow, and then if we take that down to a golfing position, we can see that that quite fairly represents what we're looking for within the golf swing. So the only real difference is that our body action is more to throw this spear into the water to catch a fish. That will make our anatomy work far superior than it would if we were throwing the javelin. But the actual movement in the body and the release pattern is almost exactly the same. The only thing that differs is we've got a ball to hit to a target an awful lot further away. So now we've had this little bit of a summary about where we're going, and we've had that insight that we actually want to hit to the inside quarter. We know exactly where we want that club to be at any one time in the golf swing. We can begin now to experiment, to discover, to become aware, to notice, to get feedback from all of these things that are going to enable us to play better golf in the long term. So again, if you go to the driving range and you try any one of these aspects and you base the results on where the ball goes, you have a problem. You must base it into, did it feel like I threw the javelin? What movements do I feel when I throw the javelin? What is the moment of release with the javelin? How does it change when I feel that I'm throwing the javelin down to the ground? And then notice all these things and then combine them and then see what happens. So there's going to be lots more exciting information tomorrow, and I look forward to speaking to you soon. In the meantime, stay safe.